love it.
Good evening. I'm Cynthia Knox, Executive Director of Caring for the Homeless and Hungry of Peekskill. I just got that reversed. I want to extend our thanks to Pastor Carlos and the trustees of the United Methodist Church for their generosity in making this space available to us tonight for this important community meeting. I also want to announce that we are planning our next community meeting for the week of November 11th, and we're in the process of securing a location, and we will put information out on our website and our Facebook page as soon as that's finalized. And I want to take a very brief moment and thank our incredible and amazing board of directors that guides this organization and has done so much work during this very difficult transition period. So if you would stand if you're in the room when I read your name. Steve Feldman, Chair. Ruth Wells, Vice Chair. Joseph Teal, Treasurer. Reverend Jan Nunley, Secretary. Valia Tesor, John Hallinan, Leanna Knudsen, Patrick Norberto, Steve Ryan, John Smith, and our advisory board members, Deb McNulty, Kat Watanabe, and Julie Wojda. Thank you for everything you do for this organization and this community. And there's another team that I briefly want to thank, which is that we had an incredible community support team come together to plan this community forum. As you could well imagine, it takes a lot of work to put materials together and make sure that information is contained in there, that is responsive to concerns that have been raised, and to provide accurate and full information about the organization, not to mention the logistics of handling this. So I want to do a shout out to those members as well, and that would be Eric. Say your last name, Eric.
Yes.
Thank you. Monica Flattery, Lorenzo Dominguez, Carla Ray Johnson, Jeff Miller, Drew Claxton, Regina Clarkin, Susie Erdy, and Wilfredo Morel. And you guys get a pass for not standing. But I also want to acknowledge the board members who were part of that team also, and you don't have to stand if you don't want to. That would be Ruth Wells, Joseph Teal, Jan Nunley, Valia Tesor, John Hallinan, Leanna Knudsen, Steve Ryan, and John Smith. Thank you so much for all this effort that you put in for our community.
Excuse me, could you have the air conditioning put on in here?
It is on.
It is on. The fans are as high as they can turn the fans up.
Yeah, it's a little warm in here. Yeah,
Turn the fans up.
I know. You wouldn't think we were in October, but here we are. So now I want to introduce Monica Flaherty. Monica is a Peeksill resident and the owner and founder of the Flats Properties. The Flats focuses on purchasing, renovating, and renting commercial, residential, and mixed-use real estate. The Flats owns 10 properties in Peeksill. Thank you, Monica.
Hi everybody, I'm really happy to be here to speak with you all tonight, and I think there's hopefully not another flood tonight.
I can't.
I heard an emergency.
My basement
Is everything cool? Okay. So I'm here just to talk a little bit about some principles to keep our dialogue constructive. I want to express an open welcome to everyone in the room, people who support the move, people who are against the move, and people who are still deciding, making up their mind. I want to try to establish some guidelines so that we're all aware that we're all, at the end of the day, going to continue to be community members, and we want to keep this discussion positive and give respect to listen to everyone's points of view. And so I wanted to introduce these 7 principles of constructive dialogue. I actually asked a friend of mine for some help to say we had a lot of tension around the way that we as a community has been discussing this, and she told me that in her community they were having issues as well when they were discussing some very heated topics in the room. I can do it. I can just hold it. So I wanted to go through these, spend the next 5 minutes just talking about this. On the back of your agenda, these principles are there too, and I'll just ask that we all keep these in mind. The first one is that we should presume good intentions. People on both sides of this topic have legitimate reasons to express their concerns. Nobody here is an evil person that is hating against one group or the other. So I just want to express that let's give each other the benefit of the doubt and listen to each other's concerns. The second thing is I would ask that we all speak from the point of view of what's true for us. So don't speak for a whole group, don't speak for the whole side. Say, you know what, I support the shelter, or I don't support it, I have these concerns. And then tell us what those are. We really want to hear that. Third, we want to then also, once someone speaks their mind, give that person the benefit of the doubt that they're being honest, that their experience is true for them. We may disagree with them about the facts, but we have to understand that what they're saying is something that is true and meaningful for that person. The fourth item goes along with number 2, is that we have to ask other people questions for them to answer. So you can ask me a question that I can answer about myself, but I'm not going to, answer for all women or for all people in Peekskill. So let's keep that in mind, that we can only speak as individuals. Now the fifth one might be the most important, and it's also one of the most challenging, which is that a lot of times, especially when we're moving really quickly, we listen and think about, what am I going to say next? How am I going to argue against that? And what that means is that we don't hear other people fully. So if we can listen to try to understand and get into the mind of the person speaking without arguing against them, even in our head, we'll probably do better in this dialogue, and I'll do my best to do that as well. And then 6 is really about recognizing that even if someone says something that you think sounds heated or mean, they may not have intended that. So a lot of times when we speak, we intend one thing and it comes off very differently. So keep in mind and try to give people the benefit of the doubt. If they say something kind of loud or yell, they probably didn't mean to do that, and let's kind of try to circle back around and take a little heat out of that. And then finally, because I love being in Peekskill so much, I think through this process, we can demonstrate a way to have a stronger dialogue and raise the bar for our own community, and hopefully have a dialogue that sets an example for the rest of the country. Our country can all fight against each other on other sides, but when it comes down to it, we're neighbors. Let's raise the bar, let's be a community, and let's work through these tough issues together. So thank you for taking the time out to listen to this. If I step out of bounds with this, please hold me to this. And I'm actually going to introduce 2 of our people to come up who are going to help us hold this approach during this conversation. Richard Griffith and Josette Hammond are principals of a company called Simple Knowledge. They have 30 years of experience training, coaching, and facilitating large groups like this, community organizations, and executives when there gets to be tension. I'm thrilled to have them as our co-facilitators today, and what they're going to do is help navigate these questions and answers, keep us on track when we get off track, and really help keep this dialogue really positive. So can you guys come up and introduce yourselves?
Hello, Peeksill. Hello. Be true to each other. Give everybody an opportunity to listen. You're not going to be happy with everything today, but you need to listen. There's going to be many more meetings. This meeting today is a start. Believe in yourselves and keep an open mind. Josette Hammond's going to go over some things. We're going to try to work through some things tonight. We do have a Spanish interpreter if we need it. So if there's any questions that come about, we'll deal with that. But Ms. Hammond, please start off.
Okay, so we're here for a positive discussion. I don't want any blaming or shaming. That's not what we're here for. Thank you. I want us all to show each other respect. That's the most important thing. And not to talk over each other. Give everyone respect and let them say what they have to say. Use appropriate language, of course. I know we might get upset about certain things, but we need to, part of respect, appropriate language. We will be calling questions later on. Okay, questions and answers will come later. We have some other stuff to go over first. But when we go over the questions and answers, we're going to do it in a fashion so everyone gets the opportunity to answer, to pose their question until we run out of time. Okay? So we will be taking people that are in favor, one that's in favor, one that's opposed, and also emails that were already sent to us, questions by email. So we want to give everyone the opportunity, even if the people that sent the emails are not here, we still want to be able to answer their questions as well. Okay?
We will not be able to give follow-up questions. You will ask one question, one question only. Please understand, that's not that you don't want to be, that we don't want you to be heard, but we don't have a lot of time.
Also, before we get to the questions and answers, we're going to go through a lot of other things. So hopefully some of that will answer your questions ahead of time, so there won't be as many. That was pretty much it. If we don't have enough time, I don't want anybody to be discouraged. We will have further meetings, so please don't get discouraged if we run out of time, but we will be ending the meeting at 9 p.m.
Even though I'm going to give you the opportunity to ask a question, I might not have an answer. I'll try to get you one real quick, because we're going to move on. What is your question, sir? Hold on a second.
I just want to clarify, because this morning we were told that we had 2 minutes.
Yes,
so
I was going to go over that. Okay, so the questions, you will have 2 minutes. A bell will go off, okay, at 30 seconds. At 30 seconds, and then again at your 2-minute period, which means that your time has expired. And we need to do that to give everybody the opportunity to ask a question.
Are you saying that because you might have more than one question in 2 minutes?
Right.
Okay, I got you. I kind of figured that out. All right, let's move on. So let's move on. Where are we at right now? I'm sorry? Volume? We're going to call up Volume Smith, you said? I'm sorry. I apologize. I don't want to mess it up anymore. Please excuse me.
Please, I don't know.
Thank you so much.
Make sure you use the mic. No, not that one.
This way.
I hate microphones. I'm very loud.
Me too.
Can I say that?
Me
You
too.
have to use it.
Okay, I've been told I have to. My name is Valerie DeSore. I'm on the board of CHOP, and I'm going to be going over a few slides to tell you who we are, because there has been some confusion as to who CHOP is and what CHOP does. Our mission. At Caring for the Hungry and Homeless of Peekskill, we believe that every person is entitled to safe and affordable housing and healthy, nutritious food. We work to alleviate hunger by providing healthy and nutritious food through our Choice Food Pantry, and to alleviate homelessness by providing temporary and long-term housing, advocacy, and clinical and support services to veterans, domestic violence survivors, and chronically homeless men and women. Caring for the Hungry and Homeless of Peekskill is a 501c3 charitable organization. We are a not-for-profit organization. We are not part of any city, state, or national or international government, and we are funded by grants and donations. We feed the hungry, house the homeless, and try to give supportive health and wellness services. Since 2014, we have found 140 U.S. veterans have found an interim home at the Jan Peek House. Since 2011, 500 individuals have been placed by the Department of Social Services for temporary housing. What we do, I'm now going to turn it over to Ruth Wells, who is our vice chair of our board and also the director of Fred's Pantry.
Also,
do a quick run through our current programs.
Yeah, have to talk directly in the front.
Okay, that's better. All right. The program that serves the most people is Fred's Pantry, which is 8.5 years old. The distribution operates out of St. Peter's Episcopal Church around the corner on North Division Street. And we provide food weekly to over 400 individuals. Turning Point is one of our newer programs. I'm sorry. Jan Peak House, present location is at 200 North Water Street, is the only year-round 24-hour supervised temporary residence in northern Westchester. Turning Point, which is one of our newer programs, is a supportive housing program which serves individuals with disabilities. It helps men and women who were chronically homeless maintain themselves in apartments in the community by providing social services in place to them. New Start, which is our very newest program, is a rapid rehousing program for veterans and victims of domestic violence. And it is a program that provides support for a maximum of 2 years to clients housed in northern Westchester. And our case manager, who's assigned to them, works with them and works with a liaison at the VA. I'm sorry, I'm all out of whack here. Okay, sorry. Their case management is a heavy emphasis on employment services. Healthcare for Homeless Vets is Westchester's first and only Healthcare for Homeless Veterans program. And their case manager works with a liaison from the VA to assess their need for health care, and we provide transportation to and from the VA in Montrose to make sure that they get it. I'm going to give you a little more detail on Fred's Pantry because that's my baby. In 2017 alone, we provided 146,187 meals to 2,437 individual family members. And the number of different households we served from Peeksill and Portland in that year was 719. Our percentage of breakdown of those served, you can see we served 10% seniors, 32% children, and 58% adults. I'm going to introduce Lorenzo Dominguez, who's a Peekskill resident, who is an author, photographer, and marketing and communications professional. He and his wife, Chelsea Hollander, are raising 5 children, the youngest 2 of whom currently attend Woodside Elementary School, which is in the area of our planned relocation site.
Thank you very much, Ruth. How's everybody this evening?
Okay.
Hopefully it's a little cooler. I was a little afraid with that beeping that we're going to have another flood. It was a doozy last night. When there were flood warnings, tornado warnings, leaky roofs. Was anybody else impacted? So it really got me thinking, because not only that, but I opened my laptop this morning and it ruined the screen and got a wet because I had to walk from the train station. But it really got me thinking, I feel very fortunate to have a home, to live in Peekskill, to have a job. I just can't imagine what it's like when you don't have those resources. And once again, that's just why I'm up here. You know, that we have an organization that has been serving the community for 30 years. So it's just something I want you to think about. But let's talk about relocation. So our location at 200 North Water Street has been in the legal foreclosure process since 2016. In August 2018, a judgment of foreclosure sale was entered. To the right is the foreclosure notice that's available. If you just come to the city, you can buy it. It's also available online. And if you're not familiar with foreclosure, essentially what that means is you have a mortgage and you go into default, meaning you miss a payment, maybe a couple of payments, and then the bank who owns your loan can basically file for foreclosure. We found out in 2016 that the building that we're in, or that CHOP is in foreclosure. Tomorrow, Thursday, right, the building is being sold. The current owner, Rich Miller, will no longer own that building. This is a fact, okay? Tomorrow it's being sold. So, let me move on. So, that said, we need a stable and secure location to ensure that we can continue our mission and to serve the people who come to live at Jan Peak House. And as you just heard from Ruth, all the other programs that are involved there, if we don't have a location, those programs go away as well. So, here's a little table about some of the improvements that we're going to see by moving to the new location. Right now, rooms are dorm style. In the new location, we'll have 2 residents to a room. There's no cooking kitchen right now at the current location, meaning everything is served cold, and the breakfast is served cold. There might be cereal. The only thing that's served warm are by all the volunteers that come. Excuse me, get a little emotional, because we have hundreds of volunteers, individuals and organizations that have been coming over the years that bring dinner to these people in need. Okay, so we don't have a kitchen, but in the new location, we'll be able to have a kitchen where we can prepare that food. Right now, we're in a flood zone. Okay, it's just dangerous for people to be there. Not only the residents, the 24 staff members, but all hundreds of volunteers that I mentioned. On Washington Street, it would be a much safer environment. And then lastly, right now we have lack of daytime common space for those, especially those who stay overnight. They have to, at 6 o'clock, they have to leave the residence. They cannot stay there. So in the new place, there'll be common areas for them to be, so that they don't have to loiter or leave the premises. You know, they're there, and hopefully we'll take advantage of the services that the CHOP offers. Okay, so I'm just quickly talk about the timeline a little bit. So the timeline for relocation is 18 to 24 months. As I already mentioned, 2 years ago, we heard about the foreclosure. So knowing that, CHOP had to start looking for a new location. So that began with evaluating locations, securing financing, executing contracts, which were contingent on permits from the city, developing architectural plans, and here we are in October 2018, and we're still probably a year away before all this other work that has to be done, which includes refining architectural plans, which you're going to hear about from the architect directly in a moment, applying for permits and zoning, construction, and then moving in. Okay, so I was going to read his bio. I don't know if we have. Can we skip forward? Is his bio still in there? Okay, just very quickly. I was going to introduce you to Duo so he doesn't have to do it himself. Duo Dickinson is a fellow at the American Institute of Architecture. He's a residential architect who helped create the Residential Architect Magazine, Congress of Residential Architecture, CORA, and the Custom Residential Architect Network, designated an historic architect by the Connecticut Historic Reservation Office. He's registered in 4 states and 40 years working as an architect. Well, there's more. He's licensed 35 years. He owns the firm for 31 years. He's built over 100 projects in the limited income special needs housing world, so he's very familiar with what we're doing here. I'm going to skip that and go on to, he has had a progressive architectural record, fine home building the homes gardens, and other distinctions. In fact, I know he has a Wikipedia page, and he has something like over 30 awards in the industry. So with that, I'd like to introduce Duo.
That's not a mic.
So they're going to fire me now because I got the wrong mic. First, it's a privilege to be here to see this level of interest and commitment, thoughtfulness, and actually the consideration of an idea for further development. What you should know is everything I'm going to show you is what I would call a first stab, meaning we're going to have another meeting, a big meeting, but more than that, you should know that the reason why I've been in business for 40 years and doing this is that when you design places for people, it's not like designing an object. What you're doing is you're creating a place in a place that already exists. There's a context, a site, and there's a use group. There are people that are there. There are people that have commitments. So the more I can hear from you, either here or individually, you can come and we can set up times when I can meet with you and listen to you, the better this place will be for you. I've listened and will continue to listen, obviously, to people at CHOP because they know what they want to do. And the design that came out of this building is the first stab based on a lot of download by some people that have been doing this for a very long time. And I think when we looked at a variety of different buildings, and it wasn't like this was the only one, there were a bunch of buildings you looked at for a fairly long time, this particular site has incredible positive aspects and very sensitive aspects. The very positive aspects are that basically this entire area was an old warehouse built right after World War II. In that warehouse are 6 or 7 very large trusses. They're in great shape, but they mean that the entire area in here is completely open, and you'll see in the designs that gives us enormous flexibility to create the kind of spaces that we're just hearing about where people can gather and be off the street and be filled with light. They also had a variety of additions towards the back, some of which were okay, some of which are not okay. And so we're going to be removing 2 of those. We're going to be reusing the double height one, which looks like the oldest one for the administrative area. But the biggest change, there are 2 big changes that impact the community. One is that we're going to get rid of the southerly end, the southerly bay of the building, so we can get a road that can handle 2-way traffic and emergency vehicles to make a safe way to get in and out of the building, not on the street, but actually towards the back. In a covered area, completely out of sight of the street, completely away from the street. The main entrance is to the back of the building. The other thing we're going to do is we're going to add a wing here that has got an elevator and stairs because we have to for safety. The largest site impact we're going to do is, you can see this is a hill, and it actually goes up pretty steeply. And what we want to do is we want to take that hill down and actually make the parking lot as low as we can and still drain water into the subsurface drainage system that already exists in the street. And what we also want to do is make that an invisible parking lot. In other words, there'll be at least 6 to 9 feet of retaining wall, and on top of that will be another 6-foot fence all the way around this area. So that what we'll have is a contained area that will essentially be out of sight, not participating in the community, in a safe and secure place. Next slide. So what we do is we make parking in the back, we make a vegetative barrier, and we actually open this area up because in talking to the automotive people, they would like to be able to occasionally pull things in and pull things out in a way in which
Never spoke to me.
Never spoke to us.
Well, don't put my name out there because you've never spoken to me.
Okay, sir.
Okay, first off.
I got you.
Okay?
All right.
You've never come to my store, you've never had a conversation, so don't even go there.
All right, so...
I don't want my name in it if I haven't spoken to you, that's a lie.
And I understand that. I do understand that.
I'm here to defend my lifestyle.
And I understand that, and I respect that.
And I want to be fed to purposely on the open. This is not open. If he says he spoke to me, he never spoke to me.
I never said that. What I said was...
I respect what you're saying.
It's got to be true, or I'm telling you it's going to be a problem.
Oh, not a problem.
Okay?
Not a problem. We're going to move forward. I understand.
Thank you very much for giving me my moment.
No problem.
Okay. So, I'm sorry if I don't know your name, and I'm sorry if I'm referring to as the property. That's the only way I can refer.
Right there, it says Brian.
So let's move forward.
Okay.
Thank you.
So essentially what we're doing is an addition and a second story in this area for a quiet contemplative space away from the hubbub of the building so that people that need some time can go there. And we're making a large overhang here for, again, to cover the entry and to keep the entry away from the street. So essentially what we're doing, because this building here is built on about a 2-foot crawl space, and all the buildings in the back are slab on grade, because you need to have mechanical space. So next slide. So underneath, above this area here, we're going to be putting on top of the trusses a roof like this, tight to the trusses, that gives us a little bit extra room, because when we pull the building away, you can see that blue is where the building was. When we pull the building away, we have a 12,000 square foot building now, we're gonna have a 12,000 square foot building when we're done. We're removing 3,000 square feet, and we're putting back 3,000 square feet in a different orientation. So it enables us to create different spaces in a way that actually pulls the building away from the neighbors. And in truth, what we have here is an outdoor area where we're removing the building, keeping this wall that exists here, not changing it at all, keeping the wall, and making an outdoor space where people can be outside but not in the street. They can be out of the weather, they can actually be in the sun if they want, so that essentially it's an outdoor area and an interior area that's covered by, for each one of these trusses, there's actually a skylight, so the light comes down from there. We do top lighting here and windows that are above the height of the wall, and also in here. So the light comes in from above, not views going in or going out, a sense of safety, a sense of natural light, a sense of openness. These are all sleeping spaces. This is the kitchen that we're talking about, an actual real kitchen where classes can occur. And there's also an exhibit space and sort of open space that faces the street. There is an occasional use of an entry here for this space, and an occasional use of this space here to supply the kitchen and the other service areas. And then up above, in the far right, you'll see we've got mechanical space and more isolated bedrooms that you'll see in the lower part of the plan that allow for different genders or different populations. Next slide. So essentially what we have is the front remains exactly the same at the street level. We add that angled roof that's over the curved roof that you can see from the other side of the street. We take off the area in blue that you see there because we have to get cars going in and out. We reinforce the original nature of the openings that used to be there, which were divided glass lights. And we use clear story lights, meaning highlights to let light in but not to let views in. And we coat the entire building in a stucco. Everything you see here will be reviewed not only by anybody who wants to come and talk to me about how the services they would think of, but also by whatever the aesthetic regulatory bodies are of the community, either an architectural review board or the planning board, whatever. Next slide. And then the other sides of the building, you can actually see what we're doing. The red is the existing grade line, and this is where we're taking the grade down. And this line here, this black line, is where we're adding a fence above that. So for this area, it's completely covered from the east and from the south and from the north. You can see here's the natural terrain. There's the retaining wall. There's the wall that obscures it. In addition, for the elevator, the existing two-story addition, the quiet room space up above, the actual glass that lets light in from above. You can actually see the truss behind there faintly. There's the entry to the south that basically has got the covered area to the right, natural light coming in for the sleeping areas that are beyond. So essentially, what we have here, it follows something which you should know. Jeanette Phillips will tell you. The first housing project they ever did was at 203 Smith Street 32 years ago. My sister lived here until she died last year on North Division Street. I've worked for the Family Resource Center, Hudson Healthcare. We just finished a house up on McKinley Street. The yellow one with the nice decks on it, it's just sold. We did that for the Housing Action Council. My whole life has been dedicated to making good design for people that need it the most. People that need it the most aren't necessarily the people in this room, but the people that don't have a voice. So I hope you'll give us your voice, and I want to thank you for your time. I'd like to introduce John Hallinan of the Board of CHOP.
Can we just please stop and go to the chat and make sure everybody can be heard and the representatives up front can speak and everybody can hear what they're saying? Thank you.
Good evening. Everybody hanging in? Yeah. Okay. My name is John Hallinan. I'm on the Board of CHOP, and I'm here to, as it says, deal with frequently asked questions. Okay? So we're going to try to do the best we can, and then you folks are going to have questions that we didn't think of, and we'll move on from there. First question, I think Valia had hit on this before, is the City of Peekskill providing funding for the project? The answer is no. The city of Peeksill does not own or provide funding to our current location, nor will they purchase or own the new location. Okay? Who are our residents? People who reside in Jan Peek House are officially residents of Peekskill. They can register to vote and use the Jan Peek House address as their postal address, which helps them as they develop into more supportive housing later. On average, residents live at Jan Peek for 69 days before transitioning into permanent housing. Jan Peek is small with intensive services to help our residents make a transition. That's always a goal, to try to get them out of Jan Peek and into their own housing. And finally, we're an adult-only facility. Is it true that Jan Peek used to be open to only Peekskill residents? The answer is no. Again, Jan Peek House has been operating for 30 years and received funding from the Department of Social Services for that time. Funding requires that Jan Peek House provide housing for Westchester residents. Most of the people living at the Jan Peek House are from Peekskill and northern Westchester. The numbers you see here are from the county's homeless, hold it, I got it written down someplace. Actually, the homeless identification system, that's where we get the numbers from, where it says Volunteers of America. Those are people who are sent from Valhalla up to the Jan Peek House. Does the Jan Peek House accept sex offenders? You'll see a letter over here from the county kind of confirming what I'm about to say, but again, the basic answer is no. The Department of Social Services screens all residents prior to being allowed entry into the shelter system, and sex offenders are sent to a special shelter in Valhalla that can accommodate their need. The Jan Peek House has not and does not shelter known sex offenders. We have a procedure. I'm going to read the procedure if it's okay, just because it'll be easier for me and you probably to understand. The first check about this is from DSS. However, we conduct our own background inquiry with the state. Every day we either call or fax the name and social security number or driver's license of any new resident or overnight resident to the state registry office. Unlike the public information which DSS may give you, the state will actually provide information about who is pending and who is on level 1, 2, or 3. If anyone who is found to be pending level 1, 2, or 3, they're immediately given a bus pass and asked to leave. In addition, regularly the names are resent to the state to double check to make sure that someone hasn't hit the registry in the meantime. Okay. Are drugs, alcohol, or other contraband allowed at the Jan Peek House? The answer again is no. Drugs and alcohol are considered contraband, and possession of either will lead to immediate discharge from the facility. There is random drug testing and alcohol tests, bags, pockets, lockers, etc. are subject to search, and any contraband will lead to immediate and probably permanent discharge from the shelter. Okay. Next question is, why are you expanding the number of beds and how many people will be housed at the Jan Peek House? The answer is we're not expanding the number of beds. We'll still have the same number of residents in the new housing as we have in our current space. We have 34 beds with an average daily occupancy between 22 and 24, as with 2017. I think Lorenzo handled some of the additions that we hope will help our clients move on to a more productive life, which includes a full-size kitchen. We'll be able to actually teach them cooking skills, which would be nice to get them some jobs around, in and around Westchester. We also will have space for the overnight guests who pop in. Right now they have to leave the facility early in the morning, and obviously no place they go is they hang out in the street. We'll be able to keep them in the facility, work with them, and again provide them services during the day. Is it true that homeless people do not want to go to a shelter because it's not safe for them? This says no. The answer is probably that's true in New York City, where the shelters are big and poorly supervised. I don't think it is as true in Jan Peek. And the reason people actually don't like to come to Jan Peek are the following. Drug and alcohol policies are strictly enforced. They have to maintain curfew and follow the house rules. DSS requires that they forgo 95% of the DSS income since they're being housed and fed being the Jan Peek House. Okay? Which makes sense from DSS's standpoint. The policies are set to protect the community and the residents of Jan Peek House. If any resident engages with threatened and physical violence, our policy is to call the police remove the resident, and supervise their department from the area. What's the curfew policy? The curfew is from 12 a.m. to 6 a.m. daily. No one permitted to leave the house during that time unless there's a medical emergency, fire, or other emergency condition. Thank
A
you,
little
sorry.
quieter, that's all. Try now. Say 1, 2, 3.
1, 2, 3. Oops.
That's too loud.
Sorry.
Try it again.
1, 2, 3.
There you go, good.
There we go. Okay. What do our residents do during the day? Some of our residents have outside jobs, but don't earn enough to cover basic expenses like rent, food, and transportation. In fact, you see a lot of them up in Peeksill working. For those who are not working, our counselors, in conjunction with the Department of Social Services, work to help them find employment. We also guide and encourage our residents to attain and develop life skills towards self-sufficiency. Again, our goal is to get them out and into their own place. We offer crisis intervention and other support services to address the underlying causes of homelessness and to help survivors of domestic violence and homeless veterans attain that self-sufficiency. Why isn't the Veterans Administration helping? The answer is they are. They're providing funding to organizations like CHOP to provide shelter for vets. However, they also recently closed the center with 96 beds in Montrose, so they're relying a little bit more on us to take up some of the slack. Will it be more difficult for residents to get the services that they need in the new location? It's probably going to be easier actually because to find affordable housing, employment, and other services, Westchester County Social Services Office is located within a block. The county bus stops right in front of the new location, so we have easy transportation, and it'll be helpful for residents with physical disabilities, and the facility will be set up.
Just one clarification, I heard some murmuring that DSS is closing. That letter that was there was from the DSS operator who said DSS is not closing. We will make this deck available to everyone here and a copy of the letter from the administrator of the DSS. I think there was some incorrect information out, but we wanted to provide you with the letter directly from the organization.
One more thing, can we just put our phones on silent, please? A lot of text messages coming through with pings. Thank you.
Why is Peeksill the only place being considered for relocation? We've been in this community now for 30 years, providing needed services for North and Westchester. We have well-established ties to the hundreds of faith-based, civic, and business organizations that provide volunteer services. Again, Lorenzo spoke of that before, and donations of support that are critical to our mission. How will the relocation of Jam Peak benefit our community, especially if I'm a nearby resident? The Jam Peak House provides a strong and viable alternative to residents living on the streets of Peeksill. As I said before, right now, the people who are drop-in overnight guests have to leave that building. We'll be able to provide services for them in the building. The plan for the renovation of the building will significantly improve the aesthetics of the building on Washington Street, and it will be an environmentally sustainable building. Is the Jam Peak House only a shelter? I think we hit this before again. Our case managers who work with our housing programs work out of the Jam Peak House. Our administrative staff works out of the Jam Peak House. Without the Jam Peak House, we would not be able to operate our Turning Point permanent housing program, our New Star rapid rehousing program, or Fred's Pantry. And even though Fred's Pantry actually distributes the food out of St. Peter's, it's located in at the CHOP offices at Jam Peak House. What kind of impact will this relocation have on crime? As you'll see in a minute, we have statistics, but I'll show you. In Peeksill, most police calls are not in response to a crime. They're mostly medical responses or safety checks. We'll go over that in a minute. From January 1st to August 31st, 2018, in the city of Peekskill, there were 22,000 calls to the police, which yielded 6,883 incidents. Sorry. Of that, only 64 incidents, or 90.93%, were related to 200 North Water, and very few, which we'll see in a minute, were related to an actual arrest or a crime. Okay. By moving Jam Peak House into a more trafficked area, we anticipate there may be fewer calls than our present location because of the greater foot traffic, lighting, and population. As you know, the current housing is kind of down in a sort of no man's land down the bottom, and we tend to think that that's the source of a lot of stuff that goes on there that's not even involved in Jam Peak House really, but we get the brunt of it. Okay, these are These are just percentages I talked about before. Were other locations considered? Yes. Other locations were evaluated but eliminated due to various deciding factors, including the size, environmental safety, availability to purchase, access to public transportation, and proximity to the Department of Social Services. Our 25-year lease arrangement did not come to fruition to allow us to raise capital to improve those existing locations, and we've invested in assessment and architecture and are moving forward on the plan for Washington Street. We don't have the slides for the actual things? Okay. I thought we did, and I apologize. I thought we had a slide for the actual numbers of incidents, and apparently that disappeared someplace along the line. Okay. I can talk to you about that later. Okay? Thank you for being so attentive, and right now I'd like to introduce Lindsay Fitzgerald.
Thank you, John. Thank you for those applause. Before I get started, I just want to say that I know it's being filmed. I know that it's probably being recorded, but my statements, my video here is not authorized to be used by CHOP. And you'll hear later some of the reasons why that's important to me. But good evening, everybody. I'm thrilled to see such a large turnout to today. It's good to see that so many people are concerned about such a large change to our community. I want to thank Monica for inviting me here today to speak. And most importantly, I want to thank the residents of Peeksill for all taking time out of their evening to be here. And there's actually quite a few people who couldn't make it here today. We'll probably look forward to speaking at another engagement. My name is Lindsay Fitzgerald. I'm a Peeksill resident and speaking on behalf of the hundreds of residents asking CHOP to find a more suitable location for their homeless shelter outside of a residential area. It's been just over a month that we were surprised by CHOP's announcement to the newspapers that they were moving to their new home at 851 Washington Street. In that month, this movement has grown from a few neighbors in my living room to over 700, and actually I just heard before the meeting, almost 800 people and residents of Peekskill opposed to the relocation of a homeless shelter in a residential neighborhood. And actually some of the architectural plans we saw today support a lot of that, because the design for the location is actually trying to hide the facility and the people who will use the facility. In addition to the fact that I think some homework needs to be done on the property lines of that location, because it looks as if the parking for that location are actually in a homeowner's backyard. So we have about 800 people opposed to relocation of this homeless shelter. And we'd like to work with those working on this project to find a new location. We are not opposed to a homeless shelter. We are opposed to having it in our residential community. Many of the reasons you just saw why. The police phone calls, all the other things mentioned by the architect. The support for the relocation outside of a residential neighborhood has grown exponentially in such a short period because it's common sense that 851 Washington Street is a terrible place for a homeless shelter. Hence the reason why the architect wants to shield it from the neighbors in the surrounding area. CHOP will try to pull at your heartstrings and guilt you into supporting a homeless shelter in your residential neighborhood. CHOP will say they have to move to your residential neighborhood because they're being forced out due to foreclosure of their current location. All residents in Peeksill and the surrounding area should know that CHOP has not been forthcoming in several cases and misled the public in some cases. CHOP says they're being forced out from their location because of foreclosure, and that they have to get out quickly, which is the urgency around this. Cynthia, I see Cynthia there, and some CHOP board members. When does your current lease end at 200 North Water Street?
We'll let them answer that at the end.
Okay.
But we'll break that down if that's a question.
No, I actually can answer it for you because I have a lease. It ends December 31st, 2020, which means they don't have to move until 2021. In addition to that, since we know that there's not a rush, why not work together and find a more proper location? In addition, the current owner, and it is actually transitioning into a partnership, as we heard about the closing on Thursday, has offered an additional 5-year lease to stay at 200 North Water Street. In many media statements, we've heard from CHOP that the story is that they're expanding services, or they're not expanding services. In the press release, they're enhancing services. Today we heard they're not expanding services. We'd like to know which is it. What is exactly the story? CHOP says the current location doesn't meet their needs. The owner has bent over backwards to accommodate CHOP. He has stated he would help the shelter with any modifications, and this was actually, a lot of this took place, confirmation of this took place yesterday at a meeting with the mayor, so the city is also informed. He'll bend over backwards to assist in modifications to meet their needs. He'll even work to renew their lease, and going as far as offering an additional 11,000 square feet to expand, building a kitchen and raising the floor to make sure that there's no flooding. By the way, I went down there last night to see if there's flooding, and everything seemed fine according to the folks who were staying there and smoking outside. CHOP says 851 Washington Street is perfect because it's zoned C3 commercial, abutted by an automotive repair shop and a church. I know most of those in the audience are familiar with the neighborhood. Is 851 Washington Street abutted by a church? No. That's exactly right. It's abutted on 3 sides by residential homes and on 1 side by Brian's Automotive. There's Brian.
Hi, Brian.
Hi, Brian.
In addition, there are 171 residential homes within 800 feet of 851 Washington Street. CHOP says their mission is to help the homeless in Peekskill. If that's the case, and we really want to help the homeless and hungry in Peekskill, why is it that most people that stay at the shelter are not from Peekskill? We saw statistics that about 40% are homeless people from Peekskill. We hear that they need to be closer to services. The new location puts that then 3 to 4 times farther away from services. We also hear that there's no sex offenders at the shelter. At first, the statement was,
Whoa! No.
That's your 37 point. For what?
No.
Calm down, there's a miscommunication.
Let her go.
We know, we're doing
Let
it.
her go, please.
Hey guys, hold. Relax. She's gonna have an opportunity to finish what she's saying.
Thank you.
Relax.
So the first statements we heard that CHOP does not house sex offenders, and then we heard that they don't knowingly house sex offenders. And so we're not sure what to believe. We've also heard cases of confirmed sex offenders staying at the location, even if it's for a short period of time. CHOP says they want to work together to provide community solutions. In the YouTube video that Cynthia Knox put together, she said she understands their concerns and want to talk with the people. But then at the city council meeting, we were all accused that we're pushing politics. I can tell you right now, there's nobody in this room choosing sides on their politics over this location, including myself. We've also heard on some occasions CHOP board members insulting members of the public. Jan Nunley, which I appreciate that you're here today, has called us small-minded and minions, and that we're the wealthy and well-fed of Peekskill. This was when we asked about the change in zoning laws, how they would be planned, and then also the grants associated with the facility. When we asked about the grants, we were told it's none of our business, even though the grants are taxpayer funded from Westchester County. And just for the record, Peekskill is a working class community, and by no means are we wealthy and well fed. We are all hardworking. Just for the record, in advance I was not given a time limit, so I prepared a statement.
We actually talked about 10 minutes. right?
Okay.
I said about 10 minutes.
Yeah, we talked about that.
I recorded my statement in advance. It was 14 minutes, but I'll skip some of it.
I appreciate it, thank you.
But I just
Thank
wanted
you.
to take acknowledgement.
Thank you.
Yeah. But the agenda did not have time frames on it or anything like that.
You are correct, but we have to give other people an opportunity because we still have a question.
Okay.
So I do,
Said that to your own people.
I do understand what you're saying, and I respect.
Well, maybe we can think of it this way. I'm representing almost 800 people. Multiply those minutes by 800.
There's other meetings.
Eating our time right now.
So that's enough. We understand there'll be other meetings. Thank you. Please go ahead.
Go ahead, we want to hear what you said.
Thank you.
We understand as well. There'll be other meetings. Please go ahead.
All right, so I will skip a small section, but one statement is true about the location at 851 Washington Street, and that is that there is a bus stop in front of 851 Washington Street. In the YouTube video published by CHOP, they said this bus stop is used so that the people using the facility can get down county. If the individuals that need to use this facility need to be down county, why not put the shelter where they need to go in the first place? Now let's talk about all the reasons why the support to move this project outside of a residential area has grown exponentially. In addition to some of the dishonesty in the statements, there are many concerns that we have. First of all, we have serious concerns about safety and well-being of anyone at the shelter and those around it. That includes those that are using the facility and those workers there. Jan Peak has had over 100 police calls in 1 year. CHOP is using the police department as their own personal security force. And we've even heard from board members that they need 24 hours police presence. Even last night, there was a police call to the facility for an emotionally disturbed person who was removed at 2 a.m. Okay. The most common police calls include for those unwanted parties. It's important to understand what an unwanted party means because that means that someone is going to their facility, they're not allowed access and they're removed by the police from the facility and they can't go there. Where do you think that unwanted party is going to go when they move it to your residential neighborhood? That is very important for all of us to consider here tonight.
Yeah. Yes.
In addition to that, there are 145 children that take the bus on Washington Street and McKinley Street, and 2 bus stops within 250 feet of the front door of the building. If CHOP cannot prove to us that they don't have sex offenders that come to the facility, this means they cannot guarantee there will not be sex offenders at the bus stops where our children are. If safety and well-being of the neighborhood isn't enough for CHOP, at least we have zoning laws to protect us. It's illegal, according to Peeksill zoning laws, to have a homeless shelter at 851 Washington Street. Everyone needs to get familiar with the term spot zoning. It means rezoning a parcel of land to use different from the surrounding area to benefit a single owner or development. The question of whether rezoning for spot zoning should be answered by determining whether the rezoning was done to benefit individual owners rather than a comprehensive plan for the welfare of the community. If you have a project that has that much safety concern, possibility of sex offenders, or things going on that they need police presence at all times, how is that benefiting the welfare of the community to meet that definition? So I will leave you with one final question for the CHOP board and Cynthia Knox. Are you open to finding an alternative location for this project? And I'd like an answer right now.
It's not a question.
Right now. No, because...
Thank you very much. Ms. Knox, are you going to answer that now? We'd like to answer it at the end.
Yes, no question. Come on.
So I have one final thing. If CHOP refuses to consider alternate locations, then we are wasting our time being here tonight. Police presence in our neighborhood 3 to 4 times a week, all year round, and the possibility of sex offenders at our school bus stops. So can I have an answer? She hasn't even looked at you. Now one time.
Okay.
We were here for to answer questions.
Yes, we are doing questions and answers later. I mean, honestly, at this point, we're not going to get an answer, so again.
If you oppose the location of this project, please stand up. Then I ask you to join me in leaving right now.
Okay, so Eric?
It's a waste of our time to be here right now. It
Eric? It's not, who's up? If you're still interested in what we have to say, can you please have a seat so we can move forward? If people are leaving, we understand. Thank you for coming. All right? Thank you so much. Again, thank you very much for coming. Hopefully you'll come to the next meeting and you'll have some more questions. Thank you so much.
You should answer the questions next time.
We didn't get to the question period, but thank you.
You're still going to have the question period, right?
Absolutely, sir. We haven't got to the question period, and that's the problem. Have a good night. We need to move forward. Eric? Eric, you have some information?
Just babies.
Why was it a notice of for sale?
There goes discourse.
Excuse me, we're going to move into the question. We're going to move into the question.
It's our neighborhood, not yours. So shut up.
Oh, wow. Please, let's be respectful. Thank you so much.
Disrespectful. Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness.
Okay, we're going to move into the questions.
All right. I get it. Shouting at each other isn't going to hurt.
Can I get everybody's attention, please? The people are still here. Your voice is important, okay? Can I get everybody's attention? Your voice is still very important. Thank you.
Everyone's.
So we're going to get to the questions now. Please.
Thank you to everyone who signed up in advance and sent in emails in advance to have their questions addressed. The way we're going to do this is I'm going to call the names of 6 people in the room to get ready to stand up and speak. I don't know whether you want to speak it in the center aisle, and Richard will bring the microphone to you in the center aisle. We're also going to alternate between people in the room and the email questions that were submitted previously or ahead of time. I will read those email questions out in full, even if they have been answered by previous presentations. The first 6 people in the room who are going to be able to ask their questions are, in this order, Chelsea Hollander, Brian D., Carla Ray Johnson, George Sinzer, Leanna Knudsen, Tom Stewart. If you are not in the room when your turn comes, we're moving on. All right, so Chelsea Hollander. Yes, and email questions are going to be blended in order with the questions from the room.
So I'm just going to let her go first. Okay?
Yeah, okay. Chelsea's first.
So 2 minutes?
Yes.
Okay. I'm Chelsea Hollander. I live at 367 Smith Street. I'm actually in the circle zone that Lindsay said is one of the houses that are affected or living nearby, but I do not live right behind or next door to the proposed shelter. Also importantly, I abut Washington Street, so I know what it means to live in a mixed commercial residential neighborhood. One of my neighbors is actually La Marqueta, and the other neighbor is a bar which closed down about a year ago, and we were happy that that closed down because there was a lot of noise in the evening hours, etc. We purchased our home on Washington Street understanding that. So, you know, I guess my first point is, like, Washington Street is mixed commercial residential, and homes in that area probably understand what that means. We've been here for about 5 years now. I have people in this room, or some of them have left, on both sides of this sensitive issue, and I do fully understand both sides. I only have 2 minutes, so I guess my question is, if this homeless shelter can't be at 851 Washington, where is it going to go? And the alternate locations that have been proposed are also in residential neighborhoods. Peeksill is residential. I mean, unless you're going to be totally off the beaten path or someplace that's not accessible, you're going to be somewhere near somebody's house. The current location is like, it's between a river and like a mountain, and that's just very unique. I don't think we're going to find that again. If we are, I guess then maybe the search continues, but if not, this shelter should stay in Peeksill. I mean, it helps so many people. There's, I just want to yard are not very friendly, but I understand why they're there. I think the issue might be a lack of communication, but this is a non-profit, so they don't have a lot of resources. Okay.
Brian G.
Right here.
I'm sorry.
Well, she made a statement. Do you have anything you wanted to add to that?
I think. Hi, I'm Eric. How you doing? Good to be in the neighborhood. I think it's difficult if you've never purchased a huge plot. I'm not talking about purchasing a house, but if you're purchasing commercial property, it's not a simple, let me get out my checkbook, write you a check, and purchase it. And I wouldn't hesitate to guess that a majority of us in this room have not done that. And it's not a simple process. I heard somebody say, well, the lease goes till 2020. That's about the same timing, in fact, that the construction may be done. So even if we just address the present lease as it is, this is not something that's going to happen overnight, and there will be a lot of other forms like this. But to the point of where else can it be? A lot of, if you look at Wikipedia, where I think 4.5 square miles is Peekskill. Effectively, we're only 2.5 square feet, because 2.5 square miles, because part of that is riverfront. There are certain places that we just, right out of the box, can't be in. We can't be in a flood zone. We can't be in a toxic waste dump. We can't. There's just a lot of things where you just got to go X, 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 X. That limits us. And if we, and I thought it was articulated quite well, if we say that we have a mission and a duty to do something about the homeless that are in our neighborhood, then we have to make some difficult decisions. My wife and I live right across from Fred's Pantry. We see that line every single week. We've got a son. We see those people lining up every single week. And we know it's a fact of life, and we're okay with it. And I understand some people aren't okay with it, but this is not a simple thing. And to get to even this forum today wasn't an easy step. So it's hard to be informed every single step of the way. And I anticipate this is the first of many forums like this till we get to that point where not everyone's satisfied, but we've said as much as we can.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Brian D.
Gentleman has actually put a slide and go back up.
Yeah, you want the site plan?
The first one with the red markings around the outside of the document.
Give me a moment, I'll get to it. Technology.
Yeah, it's always better.
Yeah, I know.
One more.
Oh, do you want that one or do you want this one?
That's the one.
That's, you got it.
Thank you very much.
Here you go, sir.
My name is Brian D. I own a repair shop that is right next to it, right here with my name on it, which no one even spoken about like I was stated before. Now, this building, as it sits now, is going to be remodeled in whatever way, okay? All right, I got louder. Is that good now? You can hear me? Everybody's in, right? Okay, here we go. This building, when it changes to the next ownership, if this is to go through, will destroy my business. My customers have already said they're not coming. They don't want to be panhandled, and they don't want to have their vehicles next to the type of people that stay in the shelter. I understand, yeah, whatever you want to say, complain, whatever. I'm talking about my life, my family, what I've worked for 20 years that's about to be destroyed by this, okay? Now, I don't know why you have all this red line back here, because the property line that has been surveyed by the current owner only goes back from this corner 38 feet. So there's no way you're putting this property back here with all these property spaces, all these parking spaces, and all this terrific little greenery over here. You're going to block my entrance. I will not be able to get a vehicle into the side of my building. For the last 30 years, there's never been a problem traversing the property next door so I get a car in the building or a truck in the building. If you build this retaining wall to cut this all back, you have decidedly cut it out a third of my shop that I will not be able to provide for my family. So I might as well save a bed for me and my family in this place because that's where I'm going to end up. I put 20 years of sweat into this property and into this town and into this neighborhood and have friends in this town. I have terrific customers in this town, and I do not want to be taken away because some people think that this is the right place and it's a building that fits their needs. Yet they're going to tear down the entire south wall, move it back 10 to 12 feet, rip down the back side of it, and then renovate everything. They're going to have to cut so much rock out of the back of this property, and they're going to have to rebuild the entire floor because the floor is held up by tree trunks when it was built back in the 1940s. If you open the basement and look, it's a crawl space. You open it up and look, you'll see tree trunks. No one has ever been in the attic. Nobody has ever been through the building other than him for a few moments. So I think it needs to be reinvestigated. I appreciate you guys listening to my
So, thank you for your comments. This red line represents the survey lines of Beatty and Watson that came out and surveyed the property.
No, it doesn't.
Well, actually, it does. We received.
Hold on. Go ahead, go ahead. Please give him an opportunity to speak. We allowed him to speak. Thank you.
So we received an electronic copy that has the building on it, and they, in an electronic copy, also did the property lines. So we'll make sure that Beatty and Watson has that correct. In terms of, if you go to the next slide, please.
Sorry, I'm doing double duty.
Next slide. Just to clarify, what we're doing is actually pushing the building back this way. We're opening this up to be at the same level. We'll pull this back as far back as you want it, and we'll keep it at the same level as far as we can.
Your plan shows for the wall to be 42 feet from the street. 42 feet from the street is at the front of my building. You will destroy my side entrance.
This is your side entrance, right?
My side entrance is on the side of the building, almost at the gate.
Right. So this is going to be completely opened up.
Not according to the plan you have on.
Well, this is what we're showing. This is all completely opened up. The building is going to pull back like this.
I understand that.
We will absolutely get rid of this vegetative barrier if you don't want it. We did that really for actually to enhance your property, not to make it worse. Well, then it's gone. Then it's gone. It's gone.
You don't have that space in the back. The markings are back there. You should walk the property yourself.
Well, I did. I have. And
not after the survey you didn't. Because I know when you were there, you dropped a blue Honda. I know exactly when you were there.
Good guy.
Yeah, I know. I watched what
I was there. I was there this afternoon. But
no, you weren't.
I was actually. Well, I was there. I was there at 4:30. But I was.
Must have been right after I left.
Well, whatever it was. But let me just finish.
He's answering my question.
I understand, but we talked about not arguing.
I'm not arguing, going back and forth. I want everybody to hear me. That's why I'm yelling.
And I do understand. I respect that. I think there'll be a time when maybe you guys can sit down and talk.
He already said he did, and he didn't. So I don't know if he's ever going to show up.
I understand that, sir.
I was there this afternoon. I'll be here tomorrow.
Please
do that. I'll be there all day.
Okay, so Friday I'll be in Westchester. I'll see you.
Friday? Not tomorrow now. It's going to be Friday.
It has to be Friday because I'm gone tomorrow. But
I will be at my shop 7 a.m.
All right, I'll be there.
I'll be waiting for you.
Okay, thank you very much. Do we have another question, please?
The next question is the first of the email questions. And again, we're going to read these even though they may have been addressed earlier in the presentation, but we wanted to make certain that those who emailed their questions in were heard. First email question. Why does the shelter want to change locations?
Thank you, guys. We'll move forward.
Email question number 2. City Hall has given you millions of dollars to buy a property. Why can't you find a spot on John Walsh and your people can work at White Plains Linen?
That's not even interesting.
Wow. Does anybody have, hold on guys, hold on.
We are going through all of every single question that was submitted by email. We are going through so that they can be heard. We do not wish anyone to say, you did not treat my question.
Exactly. Are we going to answer the question?
Can we quiet it down so the answers can be, you get your answers, please. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. So as John Hallinan indicated when he was going through frequently asked questions, the city of Peekskill provides no money for caring for the hungry and homeless of Peekskill and is paying no money for the purchase and renovation of 851 Washington Street. I know that there's been information out there to that effect that is not accurate information, that is misleading, and that's why it's so important that we have these community meetings so we can sit and say, okay, well, what you've heard on this is not accurate. Here's what's accurate.
Okay, thank you. Can we get to the next question?
The next four people who will speak within the room are Carla Ray Johnson, George Sinzer, Leanna Knudsen, and Tom Stewart.
Good evening. My name is Carla Ray Johnson. I live in Peekskill. Among my many hats, I'm a volunteer for Fred's Pantry, occasionally doing tasks for Jan Peek House and caring for the hungry and homeless of Peekskill. I understand that much frustration has preceded tonight's meeting and that it felt like a long time coming, but much of the wait is because this group wanted to be certain that what we shared with you is accurate. It takes no time at all to spread a rumor or to fabricate a misleading statement, but to research and provide answers that reflect the reality and the truth takes more time. We have taken that time, and I can only hope that much of the information just presented to you has answered questions and perhaps addressed some of your concerns. I don't feel it is productive to dwell on water already under the bridge, so my comments are about moving forward from this moment. My hope is that Peekskill and its communities might model a way to have a civil dialogue on a contested issue. My hope is that each of us will work hard to understand that just because we want to believe a statement, because it seems to support our viewpoint, this does not make that statement true. Each time a rumor is spread, it saps the energy of the whole community, of everyone who engages with it. What a waste of time and energy. And just because someone is on our side does not mean that that individual is supporting our cause because they are in unity with us. There are those among us who see this issue as an opportunity to drive a wedge between communities in Peekskill. They do this via rumors, misleading information, and personal attacks. What is most reprehensible about these acts is that they are done for personal and or political gain. Dividing communities for political gain is shameless, and when it is done behind the scenes, it is cowardly. I hope it will stop.
Can I just say something? So everyone's questions will not be answered tonight because there's not enough time. But I want everybody to know that there will be more meetings. It's impossible to get all the information in 2 hours.
Who was the next person?
George Sinzer. Is he still here?
George Sinzer.
You're looking at him.
Right here. Can you give him the microphone, please? There you go, sir.
You know, I've been a volunteer fireman in the city of Peekskill going on 37 years. Worked with a lot of people over the years, volunteering my time. I have never seen a more volatile, more uproaring situation as this shelter proposed movement. 30 years it's been in the same location. That's my understanding. When you're a first responder, the first thing you realize is that you're putting your life on the line for someone you don't know.
Yes.
When you are putting everything on the line. And I know over the last, good God, I grew up in this town, and I'll probably die in this town. Probably from embarrassment. But that's another story for another day. Look, I don't think this shelter move is a great idea. In fact, I know it's not a great idea because information that I came across from a FOIL shows in 1 year, 100 calls to 200 North Water Street from the police on various incidents, including and not limited to altercations. Now, the people who live on Washington Street and the surrounding side streets like Shenandoah deserve to be treated better than they're being treated. They deserve to have a safe environment for their children and their children's children. We cannot believe that CHOP would be so heartless and so inhuman as to risk firemen's lives, paramedics' lives, ambulance drivers and court lives, all for the sake of putting a shelter in a location that doesn't belong there at all.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Who's the next person?
First of all, thank you for your service to our community.
I also served in the military down the road.
I am very, very impressed with the response time of all the first responders in Peeksill.
Let me just point one thing out real quick.
Yes.
I also served in the New York Guard at the Armory on Washington Street for 6 years. I was involved with the recovery efforts of 9/11 out of Camp Smith.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I too looked at the police reports, and I just want to make a clarification, and sir, I would defer to you on how to analyze some of these things, because I'm not used to reading police blotters or what have you. However,
I was a military police officer.
I get
Trust
it,
me,
I get it. However, when I looked at I would like to differentiate between police calls and police incidents, because in Peekskill, in the year 2017, there were 22,000 calls. January 1st, I'm sorry, only until October. I'm sorry, I'm correct. What? I mean, August. I apologize. Through August. In that same time period, okay, I didn't look at the discrete numbers of calls, but incidents in that same time period, incidents of all of Peekskill, again, is 6,882. The amount of incidents that were just related to 200 Water Street were 64 incidents. Okay, so we're talking about 1% of yes. This is what you can look at you can look at the same things that I do as well.
Incidents, but I'm just letting you know when sometimes when police are called to an incident or a location, what normally happens is they call it a shit can. Where you're like, you know what, we don't feel like dealing and handling it.
I get it, but I will tell you that out of the 64, 44 were medical. And you can look at the same numbers that I do. And again, I was the first person to say I'm a lay person.
I understand, but I'm a responder. I am. So you can tell me what happens out in the street and what happens in the group home.
I get it. So the only reason I'm bringing this up is because when we just shout out the amount of incidents or the amount of calls and not look at them, and I would not hesitate to suggest that anybody in this room wants to have crime at Jan Peak. Right? We don't want drug use at Jan Peak. We don't want sex offenders at Jan Peak. And the people on the board and the staff on the board are making every single concerted effort to make it the safest place because the residents and staff want that too. But, I think I don't want to belabor the point because I think we need to continue with all the questions. The point I want to make is that I think it would be good to have some community members sit down, look at these numbers for real, and get to the bottom of them so that we're not doing a he said, she said. I don't feel like if two people could look at the same exact numbers and come to two different conclusions, that we're on the same page.
Thank
But the thing is, you can't guarantee nothing. That's the only problem with this shit. Because
I can't guarantee there won't be a shooting on me on Main Street.
But you can't guarantee that you're a drug dealer. You can't guarantee that.
No, absolutely not, sir. There's no guarantees in anything in life. So we're not going to do that.
The next question is an email question. Was sent in. It is two-parted. What other locations in addition to Washington Street were considered?
Excuse me, can we be respectful, please? Thank you.
What other locations in
Guys,
addition to
please.
Washington Street were considered?
I understand.
And why was this location chosen over the others? If other locations were not considered, why not?
And I'm telling you, there is none.
Okay, thank you. Well, guys, again, being respectful, we talked about trying to give people an opportunity to get some of their questions answered. We cannot do that, and we're going to end the meeting at some point, and then there's going to be more people upset. So please, let's try to get some questions answered, because this is your community. It's not going to happen by people talking, you know, it's just not going to happen.
We can't allow the questions to continue if we can't hear over each other. That was part of the rules we discussed in the training, right?
Okay, can we get to the next question, please?
Just quickly to answer the question about time, about places that were considered, the timing issue is real in that, there are two things involved. One is the acceptable location. We're just talking about that in terms of there's a lot of wet, there's a lot of slope, there's a lot of places you can't be. But secondly, there are places that have to be available in the short term, because when a lease ends and you probably have to leave because they've sold the building to change it, that it takes at least 2 years to build anything of this scale, and that's if nothing goes wrong. So we received a sheet of about 20 different sites on paper. We then looked at 5 or 6 of them. I don't remember the locations. No other site, not one, had the positive capabilities in terms of dimension and in terms of just actual orientation of the site and existing building. So this was by far the only viable candidate out of about 20 that I received. We had to decide quickly because we have 2 years or less.
Okay, thank you. Can we get to the next question, please?
Yes, the next question is an email question. The Department of Social Services on Washington is just a place to fill out paperwork. Why wouldn't you move downtown where career and health services are located?
I'm glad somebody raised a question about the Department of Social Services office. It was hard to read the DSS Commissioner's letter in this slide, but again, these materials will be available online. And in that letter, where the Commissioner stated categorically that DSS does not place any level of sex offender at GMP House, he also stated unequivocally that the DSS office on Washington Street is not closing. I know there has also been a lot of information on social media saying, why are you moving to Washington Street? The DSS office is closed. It doesn't make any sense. That office is not closing. We will be about a block away from the DSS office, which provides services, including financial services, including employment services, whole range of referrals and other services. So it's very important that we be located close to the Department of Social Services, and it's actually much closer than where we are now and more accessible to individuals with physical disabilities. And the second point is that there's a bus stop right up front. People are receiving services in Peeksill at various community-based organizations like Hudson River Healthcare. They can either walk or they can take the bus to that, and they can access other services through easily accessible transportation.
Thank you.
The next 4 people in the room who are up for questions and comments are Leanna Knudsen, Tom Stewart, Carl Bertrand, and George Ondek. Leanna.
Thank you. My name is Leanna Newton, and I'm a member of the board of Caring for the Hungry and Homeless of Peekskill. I've been on the board for 2.5 years now. Sorry, I don't want to shout too loud. I'm just up here more to say that we want to come to a happy agreement with everyone here. We want everyone to get the most out of this, and we're going to work with everyone to try and make it happen.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, Tom Stewart. Is Tom Stewart still here?
Stewart? Okay, we'll move forward.
Okay, moving on. Email question 5. Why, and this is for you, Duo. Why is the entire south wall being demolished and pushed back to make 851 Washington Street building smaller? You may have already.
I believe you're
Real quick, two-way traffic, and we need a hammerhead for emergency vehicles. That's the reason.
Okay, thank you.
Email question 6. Hang on, I gotta find my own handwriting. 60% of your homeless are addicts. 30 to 50% are mentally ill. How can you claim you'd make our neighborhood safe?
That's a really good question, and something that grips this entire nation, county, and city is addiction of many forms. How many people sitting in this room, and nobody has to raise a hand, but how many people sitting in this room has not themselves struggled with some type of addiction? Could be cigarettes, could be alcohol, could be something else, or know a close family member or friend. Similarly, 20,000 Americans are addicted to substances. This is a huge epidemic that we have in this country.
Here you go.
In addition, 30% of Americans struggle with mental health issues. And again, I ask, how many people in this room themselves haven't struggled, or a family member, or a close friend with depression, anxiety, bipolar? These are issues that impact all of us in our community. It's really important.
Please be respectful. Thank you.
I think one of the really important things about doing a community meeting like this is because it gives us an opportunity, if we choose to take it, to say, we are a community. We may not agree with one another. We may not agree on the location. You might not change my mind about the relocation or the location. I might not change your mind, but this is our community. And this is an opportunity for us to come together as a community and say, we have people struggling in our midst. We have hungry and homeless people in our community that need our help. And the only way we're going to figure this out.
Thank you. Guys, let's remind ourselves about being respectful to each other, please.
Yeah, because the specific concern of that question, and I just want to add to what you said, is about keeping the community safe. The big deficit that the present facility has on North Water Street, is that the curfew means that people can't be inside the building. That means that those people have nowhere to go, in essence. And as Duo has said repeatedly, the purposeful design of this building and facility will allow people to remain in the facility so that they are not just wandering around. They're going to be inside as opposed to outside, and if they're inside, there are staff people, they're in a safe environment, they're in a nurturing environment, and that is the purposeful design of the architecture is to preserve the safety and welfare of the community.
Thank you.
All right. The next four people in the room to offer questions or comments. Carl Bertrand, George Ondeck, Joan Vogt, V-O-G-T, sorry if I pronounced that wrong, and Maura Herrera.
Thank you. My name is Carl Bertrand. I've worked with the homeless in Westchester for like 35 years, and I've worked with CHOP for about 25 years. Worked with groups all over the county, and I worked with groups, anyone helping the poor, so community agencies, cities, police departments, housing authorities, county agencies, on employment and mental health and housing and jobs and keeping kids in school, all sorts of things. And the one thing I'd like to say is that CHOP is one of the best, and that Peeksill is actually lucky to have such an effective shelter. And another thing that struck me is CHOP was being asked to guarantee that they have no sex offenders who ever walk through the doors. The fact is, ask any business in Peeksill, can you guarantee that none of the customers that walk through your doors are sex offenders? And the answer is not a single one can, except for one. The only building in all of Peeksill that makes sure they don't have sex offenders coming in is CHOP, because they're working so hard to keep the community safe. The other thing is, I understand that you're concerned about having a community that's safe for you and your kids and your family. And the best way to do that is to make sure that you have a shelter, because your kids and your family are not safer if there are people with nowhere to go. If there are people who have no way to get food, people who aren't allowed to use the bathroom, people that aren't allowed to come out of the rain. And what will happen is leaving them feeling alone and unmedicated and hungry and desperate is not safe. What you need is compassion guided by wisdom and experience, including 30 years from CHOP.
George Ondeck.
Good evening, my fellow Peekskillites, and thank you for having this board meeting tonight. As you know, I'm quite active in the community. For 30 years, I've been going to city council meetings, school board meetings, and Peekskill is on the rise. I didn't know about this issue till the last 2 city council meetings, and I hadn't made a decision. But I have made a decision tonight. Lindsay can count me as 801. I don't know how this decision to go on Washington Street was made without public input. It is a neighborhood of many older homes, young children, and people of Peeksill. Let me just think of that. I'm here tonight and I'm going to have surgery in 11 hours. But I think so much about my city. I don't want to see it go down. I don't want to see a homeless shelter in the middle of a neighborhood that's family oriented. I am going to ask you a question that Lindsay asked you. She has 801 followers now, and it's non-political. I've been a Republican, I've been a Democrat in my life. I will finish right now. If instead of 800 people, it grows to 1,000, 2,000, or 5,000 people, will you change the location of this? And I want an answer tonight. Do you listen to the people of Peeksill? You really should.
Okay, so who can answer that question?
As far as trying to find other locations, we said at the beginning of our announcement that we had explored other locations, but for various reasons, some of those were disqualified. But one of the things I would like to preface my little answer to is that there's a lot of fear being spread in the room. And when I say fear, I'm talking about false evidence that appears real. And one of the reasons why we're here today is trying to clear up some of this and bring it down to the true, honest facts. Okay, there's been research done on crime around shelters, and it's kind of fuzzy, but the majority of results show that crime normally goes down. As far as housing prices, some people are worried about safety and they're worried about housing prices. Research has shown that housing prices may come off maybe 1 to 2% during the construction period, but once the shelters are normally finished, then housing prices normally go up, and that's housing prices within 800 feet all the way up to 1,000 feet away. We've been hearing that number, 800 feet, 500 feet. Another thing that I want to address, as far as the last comment was concerned, we talked about 800 people, and I respect that, and we're listening to their concerns, but they don't represent all of Peeksill. There's other people that are affected by this decision. And one of the things about some of the principles of truth, if you take truth and apply it to a number of different situations, it'll normally come out correctly. And as has been mentioned before, with Peeksill being such a small city, it's inevitable that wherever we possibly look at as far as staying in the city, it's going to be affected by a residential neighborhood to some extent. So if it's not this neighborhood, it'll be another neighborhood. Those particular issues have to be addressed. And we came to, after an evaluation and looking at a lot of different properties, that this could be a viable option. Another thing that I would like to say is that it was proposed that we were offered a lease, and a gentleman offered us the lease to stay in, and somebody alluded to a meeting that we had. Well, when the actual situation was beginning to transpire, we were dealing with the bank, and the person who was making these acquisitions, or the representations that they're making for this particular individual, did not necessarily come to fruition. As a board, we have to make decisions based off the true facts. We can't base our decisions off of hypotheticals if the person happens to be able to keep a building, or whether they're going to offer us a lease. If the bank is saying that they don't have the building and the building is being sold October 4th, then even no matter what the prior owner may have said, we have to look at what the bank is actually saying, because they're the one that hold title to the building, and they're the one that's telling us it's going up for sale. So for somebody to say that they're offering CHOP a lease, and this was discussed with some of the representatives from what's her name? From Lindsay's organization. We've been with representatives from Lindsay's organization, and this was flushed out. So we can't deal on hypotheticals that this person may say he'll extend us a lease when he actually doesn't have title to the building. I don't think anybody in their right mind would want to base their decisions off of something like that. We have to look at the true hard facts, and that's one of the things that we're trying to get to today. So I appreciate everybody.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Can we get to another question?
To say one more thing in answer to George, which is that if we were not listening to the people of Peeksill, if we did not want to listen to you, we would not be here tonight. We would not have gathered this group of people and gone to all the trouble of putting together the presentation. We are definitely listening, and we're sorry. Excuse me. We are sorry that people felt that they had to leave and not express their feelings.
The next question is an email question. Again, duo.
Can we just hold on a second? Guys, I understand it, and again, I want to remind everybody, I know you're not going to get all your answers. I realize that. We just got to respect each other, and we got to try to get through this today. There'll be other meetings. I understand there's a level of frustration, and I understand there's homeowners and et cetera in this room. But you guys got to work through this process, so let's try to get through this together. Please go ahead.
All right. Email question. How will you control the dust from construction to keep the abutting homeowners safe?
The only way in construction to keep it safe is to follow the guidelines of OSHA, which are pretty specific in terms of how much dust is created and the nature of its dispersal. Construction makes a mess no matter where it is or what it is, so I can't guarantee that there won't be some dust. But the technologies employed will be, like anything else, as minimally invasive as possible, because it doesn't serve anybody's purpose to do something that will damage anybody else's property.
Thank you.
Next email question. 8. Why aren't you being truthful about being an adult-only shelter because you take in rapists? That's the question that was submitted. We want to honor the questions that, as they were submitted.
I'll answer that question. Sure, sorry, how's that? Okay, so again, in the letter from the Commissioner of the Department of Social Services of Westchester County, he categorically states that the Department of Social Services does not place any level of sex offender at Jan Peek House. We also, as John Hallinan went through during his presentation, conduct our own investigation with the state. So there's a belt and suspenders process in place.
Is that it? Next, 4 people in the room asking questions. Joan Voigt, Maura Herrera, Jeff Worden, and TJD.
Hi. This is not my thing. I'm really uncomfortable. I felt compelled to come and share tonight. I feel like we have a community responsibility. I tried to write it on a piece of paper. I live on Blue Mountain. My house is right on Blue Mountain. In 1988, I lived in transitional housing for several months. And we were in a residential neighborhood, and the residential neighborhood opposed it greatly. But it was there anyway. This is really the first time I'm sharing this in a very long time. The housing and the support services that I received there changed my life forever. They worked. And God willing, next month I will be 30 years sober. I have these 2 beautiful children that were running around outside before, and I'm really active in the community. And when I drive through the neighborhood on Washington and I saw those signs, I was really sad because it made me want to go back to the neighborhood that I lived in transitional housing, and thank everyone for what just it being there did for me. And I wish that people could really understand like the tangible successes, the long-term tangible successes that come out of this kind of housing.
You're welcome. 8:55. We should have time.
Most of my questions were already answered. This is a very ambitious endeavor. This is a very ambitious endeavor. I don't know personally that I see the value of this big endeavor helping multiple times the people. I don't see 5 times the beds being provided. How many hundreds of thousands of dollars are going to go into this building? In my benevolent heart, that's a lot of food to feed the hungry. And that's a lot of shelter that could be provided. It's a beautiful set of architectural plans. It's a beautiful facility on paper. It's gorgeous. It's a magnificent design. I just just don't see where the money equates to helping more, doing more, giving more. And you do so much. And Peeksill does so much. Peeksill does more in our 4.5 square miles, the smallest city in Westchester County. In our 3.5 habitable square miles. Again, the smallest city in Westchester County. And I don't care what the census says, we know we're a good 30 to 35,000 strong. We know we have a whole community that does not partake in the census, that lives on the ground. We know it, our school system knows it.
Next two questions.
I thought that was a comment.
Well, no, I actually think there's one thing that should be said. You go ahead. We're being very polite.
Okay, so one of the things that will happen is, I mean, one of the goals of CHOP is, and always has been, to help people reacclimate into society. One of the things that we don't have right now at the current facility, we have dormitory style bedding rooms. At the new facility, they're going to be able to have individual rooms with 2 people in them, and to help move them more towards transitional society, to help them prepare to move into their own apartment. Another thing that we would be adding that you might not see would be the ability to have people stay there during the daytime, whereas currently we don't have that facility. I mean,
so I guess my follow-up question to that is,
I don't think we're allowed. I mean, I appreciate that. At the next.
Are they allowed? Do they have their own wherewithal to leave the facility? Yes, they will have a place, and they will not be put out as they have been all these decades. I'm a lifelong one. I was born here, will die here, 5th generation. Will they have the autonomy to leave the building? Yes.
Okay,
thank you. Can we get to the next question, please?
Yes. The next one is an email. Julio, you're up again. It appears in your plan on your website that about 15 parking spaces will be in the rear. How will you fit that in about 40 feet off the building?
Well, when I see Brian D. on Friday at 1, I'll bring down the survey with the plan, and we'll have to bring my big tape. But everything, I got a 100-footer. So basically, everything that you see on these drawings comes from a survey by Beatty and Watson, and the plans that we've done that measured the existing building. In the way we've actually organized the cars, 40 feet is like the perfect amount of blacktop for a 19-foot space. It's about a 14-foot, 18-foot driveway, and then a car going horizontal. So it does fit, and we do get 2 handicapped cars in, and that's based on the survey and the drawings of the building, which I'll go over with you.
How fixed the retaining wall?
They're on both sides. I'll show you.
Okay, thank you. Do we have time for one more question?
One more, another email question. Yeah. Okay, let's skip. We'll deal with that email question at the next meeting. Jeff Warden and TJG.
TJ is right here. Is Jeff here?
Jeff's here. Sir.
Jeff is first.
Hey everybody. So my name is Jeff Warden. I was an outreach worker for over 2.5 years here in Westchester County. My job was to go to various shelters in Westchester County and link people up with community-based housing, subsidized housing, and different resources for them to really help them out. First, I wanted to say that my experience with CHOP, it's always been pleasant, not only with the staff, but also the people there. It's always been a safe and welcoming environment. I really would recommend that for the next meeting, we really dig deeper into the numbers that was mentioned before to really emphasize that point, because I think a big concern I keep hearing here is safety, especially with being in the neighborhood that it's in. I also want to emphasize how valuable it is to the community. I've met so many people, there's been so many stories that have been said to me, and it really does change life. So I'm hoping that for those who are opposed of this location to still not be opposed to the mission that CHOP is serving and to the people that they support. I started this job, and when I started, it was a population that I didn't think I would be working with, and now I can't see myself not working with them. It really is the definition of community, when you're able to pick people up when they're at their most vulnerable. And I understand that this meeting is here to really discuss this location, but I would want us to all work together, if this doesn't work out, to really make sure that CHOP stays in Peeksill.
We're going to take one more question. Okay.
TJD.
Good evening, everyone. My name is TJD. My father owns Brian's Automotive, which is right next door to the proposed shelter.
Can we hear it now? How about that? Everybody good? Everybody can hear me? Raise your hand if you can. All right, thanks. Now, my father owns Brian's Automotive that's right next door. He's been on Washington Street for 20 years, okay? My goal, when I retire from my job, is to inevitably take over his business. I don't see it being there because, as he stated before, he's had several customers already state, point blank, our wives, our kids do not feel comfortable. Whatever the stigma is, whatever it is, whether you have them or not, it is irrelevant at this point. People's fears are real. And I'm not trying to fearmonger. I'm not up here saying, oh my God, the shelter. It's not that. We don't want the shelter in Peekskill. That location, from everyone's perspective of the neighborhood, it's just not the right location. Okay? There's no one's up here, we don't want the shelter in Peekskill. Nobody said that, no one will state that. Okay? The back and forth of you have sex offenders, you don't have sex offenders there, is irrelevant, again, because they have. They've been there in the past, and they are currently, or within the last 6-8 months, have been there. And I know this because I've spoken to several members of the Peeksill community who have assured me that some of those medical calls that this gentleman alluded to earlier were for a sex offender where a youth corps member from Peeksill had to be removed because he was a registered sex offender. Okay? That's there. Now, some of these medical calls also that, and again, I'm sorry for not knowing your name, sir. They're EDPs, which are emotionally disturbed people. Do you want that around children? I understand it's everywhere, but you really want that to allow that to come in. And again, other locations were thought about, they were proposed. When you come to visit my father on Friday at 1 o'clock, Friday at 1 o'clock, everyone, he'll be there. Can you please bring the locations, because I want to see if 120 North James Street, 120 North James Street, which is right back here, is there. Because that was given, one second, that was given to Mrs. Dudley when she was in my father's driveway at his shop, having a discussion with us. And it is for sale on Craigslist, hold on Craigslist. You did? Okay, so can you please bring an explanation as to why? That's what I'm asking for. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you so much. All right, did you guys want to comment about that? We don't have time for any more, guys. I mean, one more comment from the board.
So
I apologize.
The young man mentioned TJD, mentioned the site right up here that I just saw when I came here tonight. We looked at it, we actually toured it. The condition of the building is, as you know, is made from 1,000 different buildings cobbled together, and it's basically a teardown. So it basically buying an extraordinarily expensive lot, and the dimensions of the lot, the actual width of it, was pretty problematic. So that it was the fact that it was essentially buying a naked lot that you'd have to pay for the demolition of the building, made it extraordinarily expensive, and the dimensions were not viable. That's why we didn't pursue.
And it's been sold.
It's on Craigslist right now. It was there. I just looked. It's on Craigslist for $450. Don't sit there and say it's been sold. It's been sold.
Thank you, sir.
Please, don't lie to us anymore.
Is there a way to change the format of this discussion as we move forward?
Yes.
The presentation took up a lot of time.
I understand, ma'am. Thank you so much. What I was going to say is, first of all, thank you everybody for being here.
I think you guys have a wonderful community. I hope you guys get an opportunity to go to the next meeting. Hopefully, the next meeting, whatever questions they already have from you guys, they will start from there, and they will change the format. All right, and I wish you guys, I hope everybody has a good night, and please get home safely. Hold on. I'm gonna get Rabbi Jennifer. Rabbi Jennifer, can you please come up? I didn't forget it.
Yeah, I didn't. I'll keep this really quick. My name is Jennifer Jake. I'm the Rabbi of Temple Israel of North and Westchester in Croton, but I live in Peekskill, and this is my community. And I just want to say that the fear of people who need transitional housing is something really real. That's why we take our children to meet people who were homeless or were formerly homeless. That's why every winter we open our doors and let a group of homeless people sleep over in our synagogue, and they are model guests. So I just hope moving forward we can do something to address the fear, because fear really gets in the way of seeing things as they really are. Thank you.